less than 3 weeks. On April 1st, 1948, there was a resolution number 43 adopted by the United Nations Security Council on the issue of Palestine. On April 21st, 1948, there was a resolution number 47 adopted by the Security Council on the issue of Kashmir. This is not a resolution passed by Pakistan or India, for that matter any other country. These are the resolutions passed by the United Nations Security Council. So that's why it's our obligation to remind the world community that Kashmir and Palestine, they are the oldest issues pending on the Security Council of the United Nations. And second point is, because many people they ask this question, and Dr. Mir and Dr. Khan they are going to elaborate on that. That is there any light at the end of the tunnel? I will not give any false hopes, but I would like to give you some facts. There is an international understanding, and there is the articulation of that understanding. But as long as the international understanding is concerned, even today when I am talking to you, because of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that international understanding is on the side of the people of Kashmir. I will give you just 2 examples. I am telling you international understanding. Although they do not articulate that understanding into practice, that's a totally different issue. I will give you just 2 examples. President Barack Obama, he said on November 9, 2010 in New Delhi, these are the words of the President of the United States. The resolution of Kashmir is in the national interest of United States of America. This is the international understanding. You know and I know he did not do anything. He did not articulate that understanding into practice. President Donald Trump, I sometimes fail to understand who really made him to say. You know what he said? These are his words. I will be honored to mediate between India and Pakistan to address that hot, tender box of Kashmir. As Obama did not do anything, I am not sure whether he is going to do anything, but I am saying the understanding of international community is on the side of Kashmir. That's why Dr. Khan and Dr. Dar, they were in Kashmir. Brothers, Dr. Khan is going to tell you, he knows his own people, he went to his own masjid, he went to his own locality. He wanted to give him some dollars. They told him, Dr. Khan, we know you are coming from America, but we do not need your dollars. But we want to knock the doors of those halls of power. And Dr. Khan later he is going to tell you whether we did anything about that or not. So that's why first of all I would like to invite Dr. Imtiaz Khan. He is from the city of Srinagar, which is the capital city of Kashmir. And he visits Kashmir quite frequently, and last time he was under curfew in Kashmir. He teaches, he is a professor at George Washington University, and he is the president of Kashmir American Council. So it is really my pleasure and honor to present to you Dr. Imtiaz Khan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Iyaka na'budu wa nasta'in. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for showing up at this early morning, which is 10 o'clock. We have really late nights these days, attending all these sessions. Thank you, Dr. Fai, for the kind introduction. And I want to thank the organizers of Islam for providing us this forum to basically speak about this protracted problem of Jammu and Kashmir. Before speaking publicly, coming to what is currently happening in Jammu and Kashmir, I think it is important to understand the historical perspective of this problem, because we are calling it as a freedom movement, while India is calling it as separatist movement. The problem arose as soon as the Indian subcontinent was partitioned along religious lines. The Muslim majority states went to Pakistan, and Indian majority states went to India. And there were three situations like Junagadh, Hyderabad, and Jammu and Kashmir. Junagadh and Hyderabad had a Muslim ruler, but majority of the population were Hindus. So in spite of the wish of the rulers to align with Pakistan, they had to come to India. The Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir invited Indian forces, and they occupied Jammu and Kashmir by force. And it was taken to the United Nations. And basically, what was agreed upon, that there will be a referendum, a right of self-determination. People were promised that they will be given a choice, whether they want to go to India, or they want to accede to Pakistan, or they want to be independent. And as a matter of fact, between 1947 and 1964, if you travel from New Delhi or any part of India to Kashmir, there were customs. You had to go through the customs like you go in a foreign country. Kashmir still has its own constitution. Kashmir had prime minister. Kashmir had Sadr Riyasat. When I was born, after a long time after partition, and when I was growing up, my father always gave me the understanding that one day we will be given a chance to exercise our vote. We will be provided right of self-determination. But by Machiavellian machinations, since 1964, India thought they are very powerful and they need not to honor those pledges. And they started to extend this law to Kashmir, and then they began to sing this mantra that it is an integral part. Normally people think that the Kashmir movement started in the late 80s. That was not the case. As a student, I have participated in many of these rallies, which were very peaceful, because Kashmiris are peace-loving people. Where on every forum, on every stage, on every arena, we expressed our resentment that we are not part of India. India has to honor the right of self-determination. In the 80s, the baton was passed to the next generation. And as a matter of fact, what they did was, there were few attacks on Indian occupied forces. And the world's attention was drawn to this problem, unfulfilled promise about Jammu and Kashmir. Now, if you look at it, there was no attack on minorities, there was no attack on civilian population, there were no suicide bombers. What people were asking was, give us our right. This is not the separatist movement. There is no terrorism. As a matter of fact, terrorism was inflicted by Indian occupied forces, as Dr. Dar's presentation is quite vivid. Till 1989, today, by conservative estimates, 125,000 people have lost their lives. 10,000 women have been raped. And there is a book written by 5 wonderful ladies about Kuran Pushpora, the twin village which was taken over by Indian army, and the men were taken outside and women were raped for whole night. There was a young girl whose age was 10 years and an old woman, 80-year-old, even they were not spared. They didn't even kill, attack only those people who were demonstrating. Any human rights activist, one of the case of the lawyers, Jalil Andrabi, who was a human rights activist, he was taken away. After a few days, his body was thrown in jail, his eyes were gouged out, his bones were broken. There are mass graves in Kashmir, and it is not Yasin Malik or Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani who is saying that. It is a Hindu Bengali professor in one of the prestigious universities of California who has discovered these mass graves. She, along with her husband, who is a Jewish American, went there and they found that there are, in different regions, thousands and thousands of people who are buried in these mass graves. And when Indian forces got the wind of it, she was booted out of, and they put a ban on her that she cannot visit India. Every time Kashmiris have requested for a dialogue. Every time Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani has requested for a dialogue. Every time Yasin Malik has requested for a dialogue. He launched a signature campaign where hundreds and thousands of people in Kashmir signed. They said they want a peaceful resolution of Kashmir. They want their right of self-determination. He has publicly spoken all over India that we shun violence. We don't believe in violence. We believe in dialogue. The violence is coming from the other side. The killings are coming from the other side. The rapes are coming from the other side. And Indian government calls us a terrorist. If you are seeing what terrorism is, look at the record of the Indian government. Look at the record of Indian forces. In Kashmir, there is the one temple of Hindus. And every time Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani said that Hindus were visiting those temples are our guests. Once there was turmoil, and in Hindu-dominated region, there were Kashmiri Muslims being killed. Kashmiri transporters being killed. But Ali Shah Gilani made a very fervent appeal to people that they should not come to any inconvenience. That we should provide them food. We should provide them shelter. This is a man who has been severely tortured. This is a man who is 88 years old. This is a man who has 1/4 of the kidney. But what he is preaching his people? What he is preaching is youth, non-violence. Don't harm any civilian. Fight for your freedom with all the fervor, but by peaceful means. The freedom movement of Kashmir has passed to next generation. Last year there was a young freedom fighter named Burhan Wani. I'm sure majority of you have read about it. He was a very good student, loved to play cricket. His brother was tortured, and he decided that he is not ready to live in this kind of dishonor. He is going to fight for the freedom of Kashmir. But if you look at his records, he didn't harm anybody. All he was passing the messages to you to get involved in this freedom movement. He was captured by Indian forces and brutally murdered. Indian forces imposed a curfew, very strict curfew. And I think one of the pictures which Dr. Das showed, that is the picture of the funeral of Burhan Wani, where people traveled on foot for miles and miles, and they say by conservative estimates, there were 400,000 people attending his funeral. What is this message to the Indian government? Anytime anything happens, they have found a scapegoat, Pakistan. These people didn't come from Pakistan. These were local Kashmiris who believe in the freedom, who will go to any extent to fight for the freedom of Jammu and Kashmir. Like Dr. Faiz said, I had an opportunity to visit during those days because all of my family is in Kashmir. I landed on the airport and see it like I'm coming to a war zone. It was like pictures of Mosul or what Syria had. All gun-toting army men in their armored vehicles. I had to keep my American passport. I visited my cousin's house, and he emphasized, you should not venture because this is now quite some time being out of America. Things have changed, the geography has changed, and I may not be familiar with it. He said that anybody, because these Indian forces can kill with impunity, there is this armed forces, some act, they kill, no questions asked. They can enter any home, no questions asked. And after staying a few days, they impressed upon me that it is better for you to leave because we are worried that you are putting your life in danger. Anything can happen here. And like Dr. Faiz said, I said, what as a Kashmiri can I contribute? Because youth were doing a fantastic job. They used to see that nobody dies because lack of food. The sick people get medicine because Indian forces, what they used to do, they would carry people, the people would carry the ambulance, they would stop the ambulances and didn't allow the patient to be carried to the hospital. They attacked the hospitals. They used physical force against the physician, against hospital workers, against the patients, against nurses. But youth are providing yeomen of service. I was so proud of them. I was a little ashamed that my generation couldn't do this. And all I advised Dr. Faiz, I asked them, can I contribute something? They told me, the only thing you can contribute, you live in Washington, D.C., the center of world power. Tell everybody what is going on in Kashmir. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to knock every door. I, Dr. Fai, Dr. Mir, Dr. Rupmir, Dr. Akramda, we are trying to do that. And it is my forward appeal to you people. In any social circle, in any get-together, houses, however it is small or big, you have to convey this message. What is going in the Kashmir? We owe to them. We owe to our Muslim brothers and sisters. We owe to that generation of 10-year-old who's pelting stones and telling that he is ready to die, but freedom of Kashmir will be achieved. This is the minimum we can do for them. And inshallah, I am optimistic. The freedom struggle of Kashmir will reach its logical conclusion. It's not I who is saying that. It doesn't matter what Dr. Fai is saying. It doesn't matter what Alisha Gilani Saab is saying. It doesn't matter what Yasin Malik is saying that. Or not Abdul Roy is saying that. Their ex-foreign minister, who is the Yashwant Sinha, who is part of this BJP party, the ruling party, saying that India has lost Kashmir. P. Chandramana, former Home Minister, appeals to the Indian government that they should talk to the Hurriyat. But it is that those Hindu fundamentalist views of the current government who have this mythological concept that of Akhand Bharat. And Akhand Bharat is not just occupying Kashmir. Akhand Bharat is occupying Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. You can imagine what kind of sinister designs they have. So the world needs to know about it. You have to educate the world what India is doing. And all they do, whenever they used to divert the attention, they engage Pakistan in the war. Earlier they were telling these weapons are coming from Pakistan. Now they are not using weapons, they are using stones. And obviously those stones are not coming from Pakistan. Anytime these border skirmishes can snowball into major warfare, and we are talking of two nuclearly armed countries. And there's a study done by a group in Holland shows that if there is, God forbid, a nuclear exchange between these two countries, it is not India and Pakistan who will be destroyed. 2 billion population will be affected. World cannot afford that. India has to ban. India has to talk. India has to give Kashmiris what they have been promised to them, and Kashmiris have the right to express their right of self-determination, whether they want to go with India, whether they want to accede to Pakistan, or they want to be independent. And whatever is the outcome of that referendum will be acceptable to Alisha Gilani Saab, to Yasin Malik Saab, whether they like it or not. Deviating the attention of the world will not solve Kashmir problem. India is living in fool's paradise. He can come here and hug 10 times Donald Trump. That will not have any effect. Kashmiri youth have decided, the current generation of Kashmiris have decided that they are not going to live under Indian occupation, and they have to take this fight to a logical conclusion, which is the liberation of Jammu and Kashmir. And inshallah, with your help, with your du'as, we will one day achieve it. It may not happen in my lifetime. I'm sure it will happen in my children's lifetime. The struggle will go on, the fight will go on, and inshallah, Kashmir will be independent. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Very briefly, he mentioned that he was given the message by the people of Kashmir to do something in Washington. Just for your information, because you are our family members, the extended family of Kashmiri Americans. As he mentioned, the group of Kashmiri Americans, we have met with the 59 embassies and missions in Washington and New York. And that's why I was telling you, there is that international understanding, but there is not that articulation of that understanding into practice. Our next speaker is Dr. Ghulam Nabi Mir. Dr. Mir comes from Kashmir, and unfortunately from the same area where we have seen those Punun Pushpora, which is the Kupwara area of Kashmir. Dr. Mir, by profession, is a physician. He is the president of World Kashmir Awareness Forum. And I always remember it because my wife reminds me that his elder brother, who was our guest in 1987 in Philadelphia, we were students there, and my wife, she had the exams that week. And obviously we are students, we could not prove to be that good host that time. But she told him that when you are going to come next time, so I won't have exams and we will really feed you better. But unfortunately that next time did not come. Our brother Aminuddin Mir, he was captured and arrested by the Indian Army, and he was assassinated in late 80s. And he was the brother of Dr. Ghulam Nabi Mir. The reason I am saying it, it's not only Dr. Mir, it's almost every family in Kashmir which is affected. So Dr. Mir has not been able to visit that beautiful land of Kashmir for the last more than 30 years. And his only cry is that he would like you and I to know that the people of Kashmir are demanding what has been agreed upon by both India and Pakistan and the international community, the right that they would like to decide their future. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and honor to present to you Dr. Ghulam Nabi Mir.
Assalamu alaikum. Nahmaduhu wa salli ala Rasulil Kareem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Dr. Fai and Dr. Imtiaz Khan, members of the Kashmir Development Council, World Kashmir Awareness, our friends, brothers and sisters, and our young children and youth, and our brothers in our elder age. Thank you for joining us. You could have been in other sessions, but you chose, like other years, to attend this session. Thanks also to ISNA, which has been the host of this particular session for over 2 decades. The needle on the liberation of Kashmir has not moved an iota in the last several years, particularly since last year. Little has changed since we last spoke. The only thing that has changed is that many more lives of innocent Kashmiris have been lost. Many more people have been victimized and blinded. many more atrocities have been committed by the Indian forces. And frankly, not much can be expected, not only from the Indians, but even from the world community. The world, as you know, is in a pitiable condition, in a pitiable state of its own. The international law and order is in a downward spiral. Nations are falling into the hands of despots and demagogues. International political institutions are merely going through the motions and barely surviving, barely breathing. To expect them to resolve the vexing issue like Kashmir is an exercise in futility at this time. The reason I'm going to go through some of the things that Dr. Khan and Dr. Pai have said is that there is not a whole lot else to do but internalize the Kashmir conflict in your own minds and hearts, whether you're a Kashmiri, Indian, Pakistani, or a Muslim of any place, or an American who has no blood relations in Kashmir. For if you do not intellectually understand the gravity of the situation, the nature, true crux of the problem, you're not going to have your continued support and understanding of the issue, and you cannot give the sacrifices, whether it's that of being present here in the meetings, talking to the American people, or speaking for Kashmiri people in the houses of power. The first thing is to develop the understanding, then understand the empathy, get the empathy of the people, and then you can articulate rather than just go through lip service. There are no functioning, credible international institutions, particularly of the United Nations, that would discuss, educate, and to resolve the issues of violation of human rights and political rights and end the tyranny in Kashmir. That's so in all Muslim countries also. No one outside of Kashmir really cares, except people like you. And if they care, they don't dare, including the big powers. Neither has India been able to pacify Kashmiris in the last 70 years, nor has the United Nations been able to help settle the conflict and establish a permanent state of peace in the region. All the Kashmiris have seen is death and destruction, atrocities and denial of the fundamental rights. Kashmir has been, as you know, as has been said, a geopolitical bone of contention between India and Pakistan. Pakistan believes Kashmir naturally belongs with them, underlining, belongs with them. Pakistan believes so because it is predominantly Muslim by religion and geographically contiguous. That makes natural sense. To Pakistan, it makes perfect sense. It would, for Pakistani, from their perspective, make a perfect union. It is consistent also with the accepted conceptual and legal basis of the partition of India and Pakistan. So it's understandable why they would believe that. India, on the other hand, believes that Kashmir belongs to India, not with India. Belonging with is a different level of human interrelationship. Belonging to is a colonialist term, like the British came, colonized India, established railways, extracted natural resources from all over the world, including China, India, and Africa, but then they took it all home, and then when time came, they wrapped up and went home. Belonging with is that you want to live together. You want to share, you want to give, and you want to take. India believes Kashmir belongs to it because it serves its economic, geopolitical, and hegemonic interests in the region. Kashmiris are proud of being Kashmiris. That's the first and foremost. That's the concept of nation states. Nothing wrong with it. Kashmiris also love Pakistan, and many, if not all, do believe in being a part of Pakistan to make that perfect union. They don't hate Indians. We don't hate Indians, but I'm using the word they throughout my talk. But they do hate what they do to us, Kashmiris, and what they have done to us since 1947. If we belonged with them, they thought, then they would not be treating us like that. They would not be acting as the colonialists and we the subjects. Everything, from its unsolicited intrusion in 1947 and subsequent occupation, their lies, their deceit, and the web of evil and diabolical scheme spun in 1947 led to the invasion and occupation. It has been very inhuman and unbecoming of a modern civilized nation. It belonged to 19th century, 18th century, but doesn't belong in 20th century and 21st century. As we Kashmiris, I was born in 1947, the year of the ill-fated Kashmir invasion. Kashmiris were coming out of a long period of dark ages in 1947. A dark age for us as Kashmiris. Like all other civilized nations, we have gone through dark ages, including that of India, Europe, and other countries. Just because you are just waking up from darkness doesn't mean that the other person who has been awake at that time should take advantage of you and ambush you. But that's what exactly India did to us. Our passion for freedom that time, I remember, even as a child, was not as intense. We kept waking up, the light shone on us, the darkness of night went past, and we became much more aware of our existence, our identity, our religiosity, and our culture and civilization. As India kept on increasing and intensifying its atrocities in Kashmir, Kashmiris became more and more alienated. From the time I remember over the graveyards in Sopore, the college area, and in Srinagar, when we used to go confront the soldiers with bare hands, they would just chase us all over, and some people got shot and they died. They never made it to adult age. Indian invasion was nothing but an inhuman and a cynical ploy. They devised it on their own with collaboration with their own former colonial masters, the British. Contrary to their lies, my brothers and sisters, contrary to their falsehoods and fabrications, there was no true invitation, and there is no so-called instrument of accession between Maharaja Hari Singh and India. Maharaja Hari Singh was under intense pressure from the freedom fighters on the Azad Kashmir side of Kashmir, and he was fleeing the summer capital of Srinagar to the winter capital of Jammu, and the Indians trapped him and they created an instrument in their own mind of accession. The renowned historian of England, he just died actually a couple of decades ago. His name was Alistair Lamb. Lamb has written a very authoritative 2 volumes of books on Kashmir. I think it's only 2 or 3 volumes. He disproves that claim that the legal document on which the Indians have been Indians have been using does not really exist. The emperor has no clothes, and so the Indian argument has no cover. It is they, the gang of Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and V.P. Menon. Two former ones belong to Indian National Congress, the other one was working with the British, that fabricated the whole scheme and created the pretext of invasion of Kashmir. Kashmir, make no mistake, is a colony, a new colony. No less than India was a colony of the British until 47. India is a neo-colonialist, almost in the image of the British colonialists. Now the Congress party has been rendered to the margins, as you all know. The party of Narendra Modi has unleashed an ideological Hindutva wrath on Kashmir. What is Hindutva? Even according to Mahatma Gandhi, Hindutva means that every Indian, everybody that lives in India must behave like an Indian. In other words, like a Hindu. But he was very circumspect. He was smart, he was kind, he was gentle, but this fiber was in his mental background because, after all, he was Indian. Now that face is exposed, that the Congress is gone, the secular elements are in retreat. Now the Muslims, Sikhs and Christians in India are under attack. It's a bad situation there. India is causing pain not only for Kashmiris and Pakistan, it's the pain for many of its neighbors, including Nepal, which is landlocked, Sri Lanka, and you know what happened between Sri Lanka and Indira Gandhi's son when he was killed. And also a pain for Bangladesh. Whenever they want to turn the water off, they want to turn it off. Whenever they want to let it go, to flood them, they flood them. And their foreign policy is totally controlled by New Delhi. It has continued to make incursions, mind you, even into the giant of a neighbor, China, even as old as last week. Kashmir is a large, resourceful, cultured, and multicultural nation. It's bigger than Palestine, the current state of Israel, Lebanon, and Jordan, and Syria put together. 86,000 square miles and approximately 13 to 15 million people. It fulfills all the parameters and requirements of a viable sovereign state under the UN Charter. To deny the right of sovereignty to 13 million to 15 million people is a travesty of justice. It violates the letter and the intent of the UN Charter. By refusing to implement the United Nations Security Council resolutions, as Dr. Afai said, of 1948, 1949, and 1957, India is an international outlaw, according to international law. These resolutions demanded the cessation of hostilities and military action, withdrawal of the Indian troops and Pakistani troops, and allowing the people of Kashmir an unfettered right of self-determination or referendum. That was in 1948. The United Nations Security Council resolution number 122, adopted unanimously by the 10 members of the Security Council, with no exception, rejected the farcical election the National Conference had conducted in Kashmir under the behest of India. They have conducted election for national and local assembly to make laws. But what the United Nations was trying to tell them is, no, we have to decide where does Kashmir belong politically before you have administrative setup. Why did they do it? It was meant to distract and dodge UN security resolutions and orders that were pending implementation since 1948. Indian occupation of Kashmir is by far the most consequential political blunder of the India's fathers. It is catastrophic in consequences, and they did not anticipate. They thought it would be a sort of a done deal, just like George Bush thought Iraq invasion was a done deal. It was you can put it in the suitcase and you can go home. It did not turn out to be that. It was too big a bite for India to take. Unfortunately, we have suffered the brunt of it. It was a blunder so monumental that it has led to 3 wars, and there's more than a fair chance a much more devastating war in future will follow, as my 2 previous speakers said. It doesn't need to be an intellectual giant, no rocket science about it. It is common sense. Only the next time around, it may not be a conventional war of 1965 and 73, I think it was. Pakistan has developed nuclear capability to match Indian nuclear arsenal. Sad and shameful it is to have nuclear weapons for the human race. But for whatever it may be, it has been promoted and accepted by world powers to have nuclear weapons. The genie has been out of the box for a long time. Pakistan was the last stage to acquire nuclear technology. It's the last nation having this dubious distinction of having these destructive weapons and join the nuclear club. The next South Asian war may well be a nuclear holocaust for the entire region, as Dr. Imtiaz Khan said. It will create mutual annihilation and mutually assured destruction. The way India has been conducting itself since 1947, it has acted as a cancerous entity in the area for its neighbors. Its brutal occupation, as has been said, with 700,000 soldiers in Kashmir and dangling with Sri Lanka and then going around Pakistan, making leagues with the Afghanistan and challenging China, etc. These are not good signs of a good neighbor. The exploitation of gender is a systematic tool that India has used, just like the Serbs used against the Bosnians in 1990. They use it as one of the occupation of Kashmir is used as a perk to send their soldiers to rotate in Kashmir. In addition to the military officers making money by loot and pillage, we also know that for a fact, because high-ranking officers pack their pockets and fill their coffers back home in India, they send money there, by scooping it off the big, huge payroll of Indian government in Kashmir. I know it because I know somebody close who worked for the Indian government back those days. And they actually would share it with the civilian authorities of Kashmir. We know it for a fact, and there's no denying it. Their foot soldiers, however, are exhausted. They commit suicide and homicide, killing their officers, because they are mentally and physically exhausted by running after the youth through the streets. They cover the streets during the day and they withdraw into their secure locations at night. Their officers, the military officers, are addicted and they demand and they pay bribes to be put through rotation through Kashmir. They have multiple privileges there. And Indian rulers don't have any compunction to kill and commit war crimes against Geneva Conventions in the occupied Kashmir. They are madmen in politics. Civil administration, police, and armed forces can use any excuse to commit murder and mayhem. If they don't find an excuse from the Kashmiris, they'll devise one. So they can kill to quench their thirst for Kashmiri blood. It's Kashmiri Muslim blood. If they cannot kill enough Indians, Muslims, they have an easy day in Kashmir. If we can catch the other Muslim guy because he has some degree of protection in India, because there's no army on the streets, in Kashmir you can do it because there's armed forces there, they can do whatever they want. To cite just an example so that you don't understand I'm making it up. The Army Chief of Staff, General Bipin Rawat, said on May 28, 2007, just a few weeks ago, I quote, "I would have been happy if the protesters were firing the weapons at the armed forces instead of throwing stones," end quote. What does that tell you? We want to have a pretext so that we can kill them. And the world will not say anything. Does it not speak of a sick mentality, of a sick nation, of a sick military general? Can you imagine what the top military brass must be thinking in their own masses, in their own camps, when they are devising strategies as how to control the Kashmiri youth? So what are the Kashmiris under occupation thinking, and it's been said already? What do they want? What would they settle for by way of solution in future? All you have to do is to read the news stories from Kashmir. Read Radio Kashmir Times, BBC News, and Guardian. You already heard one of our speakers talk about it, just to name a few. You'll get an idea that 70 years on, India is nowhere close to silencing the voices and screams of freedom. It's not even close. It's just the opposite. On the scale of 1 to 10, being a physician, I guess it becomes easier. The scale of hatred in Kashmir is at 10 towards what India is doing there. The hatred of Indian military has always been 10. The distrust of Indian government has always exceeded 10. Disappointment with world powers, including the UN, is high. Towards the US, there obviously is a sense of betrayal because US was a Kashmiri supporter for many decades. And still, as Dr. Fai mentioned, still its rulers, presidents of all parties have shown that they have an understanding of Kashmir's suffering. Nowadays, with rising business interests between India and the United States, some of us feel disappointed. I don't see that's necessary. India has become more influential, sure, on US policy. But at the same time, American leverage is much more substantial now. India is almost absolutely dependent on the US because of the lucrative IT deals and contracts. America can use its influence. If America stops cooperating and giving the lucrative contracts to India, Indian economy will collapse. Pakistan is intrinsically, inseparably involved in the issue of Kashmir. It's one of three stakeholders. It is vitally important for any resolution of Afghanistan imbroglio for America. Kashmiris have no choice but to hang tough, keep making the sacrifices, keep suffering, if that's what it has to be, and keep hoping for the best solution to emerge. As long as Indian forces remain in Kashmir, Kashmiris will wholeheartedly resent it. People may be scared outside, but my friends come from Kashmir, I won't name them, they tell you Kashmiri youth is not. Any parent of our friends that comes from Kashmir, including the one I talked to only last Eid, he said Kashmiri has lost fear of India. Every time India loses a sport, such as cricket, many Pakistani youth here would understand that, even if it's not against Pakistan, even if it's South Africa, or Sri Lanka, or wherever, they will celebrate. Like Dr. Khan was saying, what does it tell you? Does it need to be getting Yusuf alayhi salam from the prison and asking him, interpret my dream? Indians should understand what that celebration means. Each time they celebrate, it's to the chagrin of India, and Indian force and Indian people get mad and go crazy. And these voices echo through the valleys of Kashmir. We know it drives Modi loyalists and Indian hooligans crazy. They have the force of arms, and we have the power of voices and the basis of truth with us. There is no military solution to Kashmir issue. There's no question about it in our mind. Not that we knew it inherently, intrinsically, but we also can think like other nations think. We have come to realize as we mature, from children we were to the adults and the senior people now we are, that all three parties in the conflict, India, Pakistan, and Kashmir, are important. Indian forces must leave. Kashmir has to be united and made whole again. Peace cannot come until it is demilitarized and a plebiscite held within the UN supervision and auspices. May the force of truth be with us, and may the power of God be with the meek, and the ultimate victory and peace prevail in Kashmir and the region. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Mir. Because of shortage of time, if you can have quick 2 or 3 questions, yes, Dr. Ashraf. Brother Dr. Das, can you please give the microphone to
Just makes a comment.
That's okay, yeah, there is. Introduce yourself also, please.
My name is Syed Habib. I'm the former president of Islamic Society in Baltimore. And I had the honor of moderating this session about 2 decades ago when Brother Ayub came from England. And it was my young days of activism. And I told at the time that Kashmir was sold for X number of rupees by British to Hari Singh. I don't exactly remember the amount.
70,000 Nanak Shahi,
Yes.
which is $1,000 in current currency.
Now, in the olden days, I live in India for 4 months every year. And I read the newspapers. So my feeling is that there is a segment of Indian power, which in the dream of becoming the superpower, they think that Kashmir is a drag for their dreams. So they want to settle the issue of Kashmir because it requires billions of dollars to maintain 750,000 troops in Kashmir, the highest concentration per square mile in the world. So they want to resolve this, and this is the only government who is going to deliver that to Kashmiri people. And on that basis, he made some gesture when the attack on Pathankot took place, and that went into the island. You have only 2 more years. And my feeling is that there is a 50% chance that during this government, Kashmir will be resolved. Thank you very much.
Any other question? And, yeah, please, Doctor.
Assalamu alaikum. We are here to give a tribute to your efforts, to your sorrow and to your heartbreaks, and tribute to the people who are dead and dying in Kashmir. And I'm of course disappointed the lack of criticism, the thin audience over here, and I just wonder that we are becoming numb to the pain and the misery, as you pointed out. Millions dead in Syria, dying in Syria. Our threshold of pain has probably increased, but I think what you said, perhaps in these 4 years, nothing will change. There's no moral compass in Washington, D.C., but the most important thing is to keep the Kashmiri people alive. So that's my sort of feeling which I want to express. And my question is that after your generation, who will take the baton of the struggle for Kashmiris in the United States? Are your youth and the Kashmiri youth they are second generation, have no link, emotional link as you have. And what are you specifically doing for that one? And other is that they say that if we keep on doing the same thing, we shouldn't be expecting different results. And the question over here is beyond reaching the Pakistani community and the Muslim community. Are you putting an effort to reach out the Indian community? There are many influential organizations, there are many influential people from Indian background who may have some audience, and to bring them, I think, at least to define some minimum moral space where you and the Indian community can talk together. So those are my couple of suggestions.
One more question, then they can respond. Professor Sir, yeah.
The youth part is very important, I think, your question. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Faisal, we used to have a Kashmir forum on the Capitol Hill some time ago. I would suggest that that is where I started coming because of my dedication to this cause. What I would suggest is that have a retreat in Washington, D.C., where we invite all the concerned organizations and their representation, and have them involved, whether it is Muslim Student Association, Pakistani Student Association, and it's not a bad idea to start a Kashmiri Student Association in different areas so we can have distinct cultural identity associated with it in campuses. But one thing which I would like to say is that we have not been able to connect with the youth on that. I teach in the university in a local Kashmiri students from the valley. They were very active and they were doing sign up for Syria. And I said, do you know what's happening in Kashmir? But Kashmir was not, excuse my language, but sexy enough for them to be involved in this. And this is something that we have to work on, especially the women's organization and the use of rape as a weapon of war, which we have totally ignored and we have not mentioned that enough. We have to get this thing on the front. Thank you.
Dr. Mir and Dr. You can give it the name. There are 2 questions, 3
Well,
brief response.
what was your first question? Was regarding the involvement of youth, if I'm not
After our old age, who are the youths of Americans? What they know?
But your question was regarding the formation of Kashmiri Forum and the capital. I think that is a very good idea, and the message has to be brought in. And I think
I would suggest National Press Club so we can get a C-SPAN coverage.
yes, we did have actually Faisal may fill me in. We had a meeting in National Press Club about 2 months ago. There is this Muslim leadership forum where I spoke. And actually, it seemed that they had a plan to basically to spread the word around and to be proactive in Kashmir. The interesting thing about that was that that session was just on Kashmir. And there were some African Americans and there were other sort of a mixture of population. So I think initial steps in that direction are being taken. But we need to be more proactive and so that can be done. I think that's a very good suggestion. We can have as many forums as we can. Doctor.
Dr. Mansoor Ahmed.
Question.
Sure.
Let me answer Dr. Mansoor Ahmed, inshallah. Take your question. Thank you. You are a sleep studies expert and sleep disorders expert. There is a state of somnolence on the part of conscience of world community at large and in Muslims in particular. As Faisal said that the Kashmir issue doesn't seem to be too attractive to even Kashmiris. When the pain gets so much and it persists so long and you are in a wilderness and nobody comes to your rescue, and even if some smaller nations come to help you, they get brutalized by the propaganda and unfortunately recent discussion about terrorism and all that in Pakistan and others being included in that. It becomes hard for people to support you. But the fact is that the Kashmiris they don't have a whole lot of support from powerful nations. But its cause is much more clear. We're not fighting against our own dictators. Syria is fighting against its own dictator. Iraq did the same, they had their own dictators. Afghanistan and others are the same, and Libya. Kashmir is under the occupation of foreign force. That should have been much clearer and easier to defend for the people of the world and Pakistanis and Muslims in this country in particular. So I think the question that was raised by you also is, what do you do? Who comes after our generation? Most of us have been in British Parliament and House of Lords too, and we've seen people in their 80s, 90s sitting and sleeping while the discussion is going on. We don't want to be like that. We do need to have younger generation brought in. The problem is, just like Chinese controlling Tibet, Indians control Kashmir's entry and exit. They control every village. They control every street, every alley in Kashmir. 700,000 soldiers is a lot of soldiers. 1 to 20 or 1 to 10 ratio, depending on what regions of Kashmir you talk about. They know everything about Kashmiris. They've done it for 70 years. They've established their network of spies. So Kashmiris who come here, they're fearful. Kashmiris are their mama's boys too. That's the problem. Those who come here. And Mama says from Kashmir, or Baba says from Kashmir, don't do anything silly. They are going to torture us. They're going to take your mother, your brother, your sister. And that is really, really hard to take. Only a Kashmiri would understand. They understand what an Indian soldier can do. Even a Kashmiri policeman can do. The fear is real. Since 1992, approximately, probably through the middle of 1990s, our families would tell us, don't even come here. And for me, I can tell you back those days, I used to fear so much for my family there, not only for myself here, that I would think, if you are brought to the end of a door in a building, which is lit, and there's darkness outside, pitch dark, and they tell you to jump, you don't know where you're going to land, you're going to be drawn back. This is how it was back those for all Kashmiris here. They don't want to go to Kashmir and their families don't want to come. So that gives you some of an idea of the scale of the fear Kashmiri youth in this country have. But someday something will happen. They will not care anymore. And that's the time we'll have to work for, and inshallah that will happen.
We have next, Dr. Khan, we have next.
One more sentence on that one, that now we are going, ultimately when it comes to the point that we have retreated away from this world or we have some problems, the youth will emerge and they will be taken, the baton will pass on to them. I don't think it will be left rudderless.
One very brief comment, that are you reaching out the Indian organizations, Indian Americans?
Yeah, let me, because we have to conclude, people are coming for the next session. I would like to bridge what Dr. Ashraf and Dr. Mansoor said here, because I will conclude with that. I agree with Dr. Ashraf, although he did not say in this way, but for us as Kashmiri Americans, more than America, it is Indian public sphere which is more important for our movement. For that, I have just 3 examples. Jaya Jatli, one of the prominent Indian journalists, writes for India Today. She writes that she had been going to Kashmir since she was a young baby. She said, but this time when I go to Kashmir, this Kashmiri youth is totally changed. These are her words. Because this youth stands in front of the Indian soldier. Then she writes, you cannot crush such a generation. Mani Shankar Iyer, one of the prominent leaders of Indian National Congress, he said, just 3 months back, after having visited, it is in the Indian Express, after having visited Kashmir, we should stop blaming Pakistan. These are Kashmiri youth. Gautam Navlakar, he said, I was in Kashmir, these are his words. There were more than 1 million people there. I could not see a single gun. It's an indigenous movement. So what you are saying that this is the Indian public sphere, and you know India is 1.2 billion people, but I'm not saying that everybody is saying that, but these are the people who really shape the opinion of the Indian public sphere. So let me conclude with this, that in Kashmir, again back to Dr. Mansoor, this is the youth-led movement. There, and we have the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have the international understanding, we have the support from the brothers and sisters. Keep praying for us, inshallah. The day is going to come when the occupation is come to end. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa nasr, innal insana lafi khusr illa allazina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.